In the world of Android phones, there's a lot of choice, but if you're after flagship power without the price tag of the ultra premium models and a sensibly sized device with good cameras, there are two phones that stand out: the Galaxy S23 and the Pixel 8. But which is best? I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and in this video I'm going to tell you. So design first, and the regular smartphones these days are just rectangle slabs made of metal and glass, right? Well, yeah, there is that, and when you reduce it down to the basics, that's essentially what we have here. But if you look a bit closely and hold them in your hand and use them, there's a definite difference between these two phones. The thing that strikes the senses first is how much slimmer, smaller and more portable the Galaxy S23 is. It makes the Pixel look a little unwieldy by comparison. It's almost 1.5 millimeters thinner, and it's 4 millimeters shorter. Crucially though, it's more than 20 grams lighter. It's the difference between feeling like you have a small compact phone in your hand and not. Still, if you ask me to pick a phone based purely on looks and being completely subjective, the Pixel design language is the more attractive to me. And where the Galaxy design is a bit plain, Google's phone has a clear identity thanks to the camera bar across the back and the radius of the curves around the corners. Galaxy gets marks for skinny bezels, which are still stand out in the world of Android phones for being uniform all the way around all four sides. But what about durability? Well, here there's not much difference to separate them. Both are water resistant to the same IP68 levels, which means you can submerge them in clean water up to 1.5 meters deep, or at least that's what they've been tested to. They're also built from sturdy aluminium and Gorilla Glass Victus, although the Samsung has the newer second generation glass, and it has Armor aluminium for slightly better scratch and impact resistance. For those reasons alone, and putting my aesthetic preferences aside, the Galaxy design is objectively better, since it's smaller, more compact, thinner, lighter, and technically a little more durable. When it comes to the displays on the front though, there's not much to separate these two panels on these two flagship Android phones. The Samsung is 6.1 inches, the Pixel 6.2 inches, and both are AMOLED or OLED panels with up to 120Hz refresh rates. Both have high brightness capabilities too, so I didn't tend to struggle at all to see them even in bright outdoor daylight conditions. Typical brightness on the Samsung is 1200 nits, Pixel is 1400. Peak brightness is 1750 nits on the Galaxy and 2000 on the Pixel, and for those unsure, those are very high numbers for smartphone displays. I mean, they're both very bright. Color reproduction is slightly different on them though, but again, this isn't something I'd base a purchasing decision on unless you're really specific about your display tastes. Both displays are punchy, bright displays with great contrast and deep black levels. There is a slight difference in tone, with the Pixel seeming a little warmer most of the time, and the Samsung a little more contrasty and saturated, but there's not a huge amount in this. Both are perfectly good for watching your favourite shows on social media. Samsung does give you a bit more flexibility when it comes to tuning the white balance and colours, but that's about it. Now let's switch to talk performance, and there's a slight difference in approach from Samsung and Pixel again. Samsung has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, Pixel has the Google-made Tensor G3. They're not far off each other in terms of raw power, but the Snapdragon is a little bit more beefy. Not that it matters too much in everyday usage, because they both have those 120Hz displays, and they both have that fluid, sharp and responsive feeling when you're scrolling through the user interface or launching apps. Now, loading apps and games are similar as well, and they're not different enough to affect any buying decisions, at least not to my mind. Now, Google's chip has been designed to make the AI-powered software elements run smoothly and efficiently. And as for battery life, that's pretty interesting, because the Pixel has the larger capacity. It's 4,575 mAh versus 3,900 in favour of the Google phone. However, because of various software optimizations and the efficiency of the Snapdragon processor, they both deliver very similar battery life in everyday usage. You shouldn't find that either struggles to make it through a full workday. With both phones, with my own particular usage, which is quite moderate and usually totals around 3 hours of screen usage spread between browsing, gaming and social media, I can finish the day with more than 30% left over. If I'm travelling, listening to music while constantly switching between 4G and 5G masts en route, that obviously changes, and on those types of days I can get below 20%, but the short version of both of them, it actually seemed the S23 was the one that could last a little while longer, despite having a smaller battery. Both can charge wirelessly and relatively quickly with a wired charger, but nowhere near as fast as the likes of OnePlus and Xiaomi phones. Now, if you're familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of the Pixel and Samsung cameras, the differences between them in pretty much any condition won't come as any surprise to you. In fact, if you're familiar, you'll likely be able to tell which one is which just by looking at the photos side by side. There is a hardware difference, in that Samsung has a dedicated zoom lens, Alongside the primary camera and the ultra-wide camera, Pixel just has the primary and ultra-wide, but you can zoom in 2 times at the tap of a button and still get a good zoomed in shot without any real lack of detail. So how do they compare? Well, for the most part, Samsung has this tendency to push contrast quite high. So you'll find some of the bright highlights in images sometimes blow out a bit more, and the darker elements also get crushed a little, where Pixel tends to handle those contrasting light and dark parts a bit better. Pixel evens those out so you get decent texture in the highlights and in the shadows. When you combine that high contrast look from Samsung with its other tendency, which is to oversaturate colors, you can end up with a picture that looks quite unrealistic. Sure, the picture will have impact when you look at it and share it on social media, but I'm personally not a big fan of that oversaturated high contrast image style, and it's there even if you switch off the scene optimizer function. In lower light situations where, like sunsets and at nighttime, this sometimes means you find a bit more noise and graininess in Samsung's photos compared to the Pixel, and they tend to lose some of the detail in elements like tree branches, bushes and leaves. So as a general feel, Samsung's and Pixel's images are different in that Samsung seems brighter, more color rich and contrast heavy, and Pixel's are warmer, softer and a bit more natural. Now of course we can't talk camera without discussing some of the AI elements Google has built into the Photos app. So you can do things like pick up subjects, resize them, move them to a different part of the image, and you can even change the sky or the water in images if you want to create a completely different shot. Audio Magic Eraser lets you remove background noise from your videos or make your voice clearer, and this AI theme continues in other areas of the software too, like the AI Wallpaper Generator, which can use preset customizable commands to produce new random wallpaper styles whenever you want. Both manufacturers do support you with updates for a long time, but here again Pixel has the upper hand. Google makes the outstanding claim that it will offer a huge 7 years of updates on the Pixel 8, taking you up to 2030 before you no longer get any updates. So in the end, there are a couple of reasons to pick each phone. For the camera capabilities, the AI power, and the long software support, you have the Pixel 8. It's a brilliant choice. In the S23's favour, there's the fact it's getting on a bit now, so it can be found at prices way below its original retail price. Plus, it's thinner, lighter, easier to hold in one hand, and it also has the more efficient, more powerful processor and slightly better battery life. But for me, because of that camera and because of the long software support and the smarts, the Pixel is the winner. What do you think? Samsung or Pixel? Let me know in the comments and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.